In this discussion of religion, we will look at a few basic ideas from some of the world religions, but mostly what we're looking at is what is the function of religion as a social institution. Sociologists are interested in the social impact of religion on individuals and institutions and don't attempt to prove or disprove any of the specific beliefs of a religion. Sociologists study religion through looking at norms and values of religious faiths, through their substantive beliefs, and then what those things mean to the individual worshipers and how they display themselves and what it does in terms of empowering and disempowering or dominating and subordinating certain groups. That's what our focus will be. Durkheim recognized the importance of religion in human societies, focusing on its social impact. Religion is a collective act defined as a unified system of beliefs and practices related to sacred things. Sacred and profane don't mean exactly what you might think they do to Durkheim. Sacred means any element beyond everyday life that inspires awe, respect, or fear, such as rituals like prayer or fasting, or objects that are given special care because of what they mean in terms of the divine. The profane includes ordinary and commonplace things, which can sometimes become sacred, or they're profane to some people and sacred to others, such as a specific book might be an interesting read to you, but a holy book to someone else. It could be just profane, just ordinary for you, which notice that doesn't mean it's something nasty or bad. It just means it's regular, like a chair. Manifest functions of religion are open and stated explanations of events. Latent functions are unintended, covert, or hidden. So a manifest function of religion might be to teach what is true about the afterlife. A latent function may be to provide a level of societal control or a way to administer justice. Durkheim viewed religion as an integrative power or societal glue that holds society together. For an example, religious rituals surrounding celebrations or loss, such as weddings and funerals. The integrative impact is evident for immigrants and variant lifestyles in the United States. Muslims have been the most talked about immigrant religious group in recent years, but Muslims are divided into a variety of sects and express their faiths in different ways too. Islam in the United States can be integrated by faith, ethnicity, or both. Religious loyalties can also sometimes be dysfunctional. For example, the way the so-called Christian Nazis in Germany were unified against Jewish believers. Modern-day nations such as Lebanon, where Christians versus Muslims fight, and fairly recently in Northern Ireland, Roman Catholics versus Protestants, have been torn by clashes that were in large part based on religion. Those clashes and the violence that goes with them are certainly dysfunctions. The idea of divine intervention and a higher power allows some people to face calamities as simply God's will, and thus having an ultimate benefit or purpose. Sometimes people can be encouraged to endure hardships here on earth in order to be blessed in heaven or in the afterlife or in the next life. Max Weber examined the connection between religious allegiance and capitalist development. His findings were presented in his book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. The Protestant ethic is an emphasis on a disciplined work ethic, this worldly concerns or material things, and a rational orientation to life. A byproduct of the Protestant ethic is to accumulate savings for future investment. Weber stressed that the collective nature of religion has social consequences for society as a whole. Conflict theorists stress that Weber's theory should not be used as an analysis of mature capitalism. Durkheim agreed in the collective nature of religion, and his study of suicide was largely based on integration into a faith community. Liberation theology is the use of the church in a political effort to eliminate poverty, discrimination, or other forms of injustice in a secular society. Liberation theology suggests a moral responsibility to stand against oppression. Critics charge that liberation theology ignores personal and spiritual needs. Some Catholics in Latin America are converting to mainstream Protestant faiths or to Mormonism. Marx suggested that religion impeded or stopped or slowed social change by encouraging oppressed people to focus on their otherworldly concerns rather than their immediate poverty or exploitation. To him, religion was an opiate, harmful to oppressed people. For example, white slave owners forbade slaves in the United States to practice native religions, instead pushing Christianity, which encouraged obedience. Marx believed that religion's promotion of social stability, perpetuates social inequality. For example, women are typically found in subservient positions both inside religious institutions and in the homes that practice them. Marxists suggest that by inducing false consciousness among followers, religion lessens political action. Religion serves to subordinate women according to the feminist perspective. Women play a fundamental role in the religious socialization of children. Most faiths have a long tradition of exclusively male leadership. Women make up 28% of the students enrolled in theological schools in the United States, but account for only 21% of the clergy. They tend to have shorter careers and to serve outside of congregational leadership. About 84% of the world's population adheres to some religion. About 15% of the population, therefore, is non-religious. The level of adherence changes over time and also varies by country and age group. Christianity is the largest single faith. Islam is second largest. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are all monotheistic, meaning that they believe there is one God. Islam is communalistic and often features a combination of religion and state. Hinduism differs in that it adheres to multiple deities, actually tens of thousands or maybe more than that deities. It is not monotheistic, it is polytheistic, though most worshippers are devoted primarily to a single deity. It is also distinguished by a belief in rebirth through reincarnation. Buddhism is based on the teaching of Siddhartha, or Buddha. The goal of enlightenment is reached through meditation in Buddhism. There are major variations within each of these faiths. Click on the link at the bottom of the slide to take you to a file of information about world religions, basic facts. Please read it and especially note the bold-faced portions. There are likely to be some questions on your test and on your final from that handout. If you can't make it work, I'll also have a link to it in your modules just as a separate link with the same title. All religions have certain elements in common that are expressed distinctly in each faith and across cultures. Beliefs, rituals, and experience. Religious beliefs are statements to which members of a particular religion adhere. Fundamentalism is an emphasis on doctrinal conformity and the literal interpretation of sacred texts. Fundamentalists vary widely in behavior, and there are fundamentalists in every world religion. In general, spirituality is not as strong in industrialized nations as in developing ones, though the United States tends to be an exception to this trend. Religious rituals are practices required or expected of members of a faith, such as Hajj or pilgrimage to Mecca among the Muslims. Rituals honor the divine power of the religion, affirm beliefs, and remind adherents of their religious duties. They also carry symbolism. Religion develops distinctive norms to structure behavior and uses sanctions to reward or penalize behavior. Bar mitzvah gifts, expulsion for exploiting religious norms are examples. Religious experience refers to the feeling or perception of being in direct contact with the ultimate reality, such as being the divine being, or being overcome with religious emotion, being born again, being inspired, or being led. The collective nature of religion has led to many forms of religious association. Ecclesia, denominations, sects, and cults are some of the forms. An ecclesia is a religious organization that claims to include most or all members of a society and is recognized as the official or national religion. Examples would be Islam in Saudi Arabia, Buddhism in Thailand, Hinduism in India, the Church of England, the Catholic Church in Spain, and so forth. Please note that the United States does not have a national religion. That's part of our founding. Denominations are large, organized religions not officially linked to the state or to the government, but like an ecclesia, it tends to have an explicit set of beliefs, a defined system of authority, and a generally respected position in society. A denomination lacks the official recognition and power held by an ecclesia. A relatively small religious group that has broken away from some other religious organization to renew what it considers the original version of the faith. Sects are fundamentally at odds with society and do not seek to become established national religions. They require intensive commitment and demonstration of belief by members. Sects are often short-lived. An established sect is a religious group that is an outgrowth of a sect. For example, the Hutterites, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, and Amish. A new religious movement, NRM, or cult, is generally a small, secretive religious group that represents either a new religion or a major innovation of an existing faith. Cults are similar to sects in that they tend to be small and are often viewed as less respectable than more established faiths. Like sects, cults may be transformed over time into other types of religious organizations. Ecclesia, denominations, and sects are best viewed as types along a continuum rather than as mutually exclusive categories. Cults generally lie outside the continuum because they generally define themselves in terms of a new view of life rather than in terms of existing religious faiths. Sociologists look at religion from an organizational perspective, which tends to stress the stability of religious adherence. Electronic churches are a newer form of religious organization facilitated by cable television and satellite transmissions. The electronic church has expanded through the internet, which offers sites online to augment or serve as substitutes for going to church in person. They fail in the connecting people into community, but they do offer some benefit. The growth in internet usage may have contributed to the increasing number of religiously unaffiliated adults, but religious groups worldwide are also adapting to new media and interacting with and enhancing their sense of community. First Baptist Church Monroeville has a radio show and an internet um, podcast that they do with it for every service, for example. It's certainly worth taking some time to take a look at. It's also worth noting that sects and cults are often led by individuals who have a personal quality called charisma that turns audiences into followers in an undefinable kind of way. And often a sect or cult dies when their leader dies. Creationists believe in the biblical account of the creation of humans and of the universe some 10,000 years ago, at odds with scientific evidence. They want this theory taught in schools as at least an alternative to the theory of evolution, which also is only a theory and also cannot be proved. The issues go to the heart of the First Amendment's provisions regarding religious freedom. In Engel versus Vitale, 1962, the Supreme Court ruled that non-denominational prayer in New York schools was unconstitutional. Subsequent decisions have allowed voluntary school prayer by students. The general public in the U.S. is broadly supportive of creationism and highly skeptical of evolution. Intelligent design, though, the idea that life is so complex that it must have been created with divine purpose, has been advanced as a way of getting around the Supreme Court's decisions. It is not based explicitly on biblical accounts, so it is not a single religious view, but it is largely accepted by fundamentalists from all religions. Supporters of school prayer believe that the Supreme Court has driven too big a wedge between church and state and argue that prayer can provide socialization and spiritual guidance. Opponents of school prayer argue that the religious majority may impose specific viewpoints onto religious minorities. Tell me something that you think about the separation of church and state and what that means. I hope that you're aware that that phrase is not actually in the Constitution. Public school education is mostly a local issue. Most initiatives and lobbying occur at the local or state level. The Supreme Court has taken a hard line on religion in the schools. Religious expression is allowed under certain circumstances, but there are limitations. Debate is still strong and ongoing. Critics worry about fundamentalist activism that may one day lead to sectarian religious control of public education. In your notes, please talk to me a little bit about your opinion about whether things like Bible verses and religious iconography can be displayed in public places like courthouses. There's even a controversy about whether or not nativity scenes should be able to be displayed in public places sponsored by towns, for example, at Christmas time, or whether children should be able to sing things like Silent Night in Christmas programs, or should we even have a break called Christmas break? So just make a comment or two about your views on the separation of church and state as it relates to shows of religious belief in public places. I just found this interesting and thought you might too.